Over the past month, as we've been talking about renunciation and letting go, I've been thinking a lot about trust and that it takes trust to let go. And the Buddhist teachings don't really mention trust very much. They talk a lot about truthfulness and moving towards what's true in our lives. And yet, I think it's trust that opens us to that possibility. So think for a moment about how we start a meditation. From the very beginning, the guidance offer says something like, settle back, let go of the thoughts, receive your experience instead of controlling it, relax. It sounds fairly simple, and yet every one of us knows it's not. Sometimes it takes a while to really settle and relax. So right from the beginning, we're being invited to let go of our habitual patterns of doing and enter into just being, to be present at this moment. Can you feel the little leap of faith that's there? That leap of faith that we will be okay, that we can let go of a sense of control and let go into the uncertainty of the next moment. Because truly, we don't know what might happen in the next moment. And it feels a little vulnerable. Letting things be exactly as they are and being okay with that. Actually being comfortable with the discomfort of that. It asks a certain level of trust that starts from the moment we first sit down. It's trust in ourselves, trust in our practice, in the teachings, the teachers. It's really trust in this possibility of more happiness and less suffering in our lives. So this is from the dictionary. To trust is to believe in the reliability, the truth, the ability or the strength of someone or something. And it's not stagnant. Trust isn't something that we achieve once and done, right? It's a process and it grows and strengthens over time. We don't just jump in and tell ourselves that something's trustworthy. We've probably actually all done that before, right? We've acted impulsively, and it doesn't always have a good outcome. When it does, we call ourselves lucky, right? The guy who tells us to jump off a cliff when we're bungee jumping, we don't just do it without verifying his credibility, right? We check the company, we make sure the cords aren't frayed. We want to trust that we're safe, or at least safe enough. And so really the same is true in our practice. We try to verify what others suggest to us. And every time we sit on the cushion or bring ourselves back to a mindful posture in our lives, that's what we're doing. And it starts in small ways, and it grows and it deepens. Every invitation to receive our experience has trust embedded in it. We're asking ourselves to turn toward our experience, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, and just be with it. And we don't know where it might take us, what the next moment might bring. You know, maybe we feel an easy moment of quiet and calm breath. Or maybe what arises are feelings about an experience that we've been hiding from for a long time because it's so painful. Or maybe it's the experience that was so great that we don't want to let go because life might not be so good again. I really wonder, how can we turn towards any of this without trusting ourselves and our teachers and the teaching? It can feel vulnerable. It can even feel raw and shaky. And it's so important to honor that. Sometimes there are times we just can't face it. We aren't ready to open that much. And if we listen, we know when it's too much. There's resistance, constriction, or fear in our minds and our hearts. And so we gently go slowly. This is why the meditation instructions also emphasize kindness and care without forcing ourselves. So we can learn to trust our own rhythms, our own natural pace of unfolding, and begin to honor our heart's wisdom. Trust doesn't happen in our heads. It doesn't grow by thinking about it or forcing it. It grows by experience in small steps. And we know it inside. There's a felt sense. If you just take a moment and see if you can touch that in yourself. When I do, I can feel a kind of calm, centeredness, and clarity when I feel trusting of myself. And it doesn't mean that I won't face situations that are challenging, but I feel like I can trust that I'll learn with time and practice that I can navigate them. So trust is relational also. It's born in relationship. Think for a moment for yourself of a relationship you may have with an old friend, or maybe a family member, your grandmother, a sibling, maybe it's your partner, someone that you totally feel yourself with and share your secrets with, right? Those parts of yourself you keep to yourself because you don't know how the world would respond to them. But with this person, it's okay. How that feels, being in the presence of that person and feeling safe to be open to all of yourself, right? The good, the bad, and the ugly. That's trust. If you were on the Daily Sit a couple weeks ago, Susan spoke about times when she feels what she calls scrappy inside. And sometimes it shows up in her interactions with Bill and how they're able to notice and discuss this and how she appreciates the mirror that it can provide to her. And I think this takes enormous trust. It's trust first in ourselves to open to that scrappy feeling, and then in the relationship itself, to able to be honest and to explore. I know for me, I have just a few relationships in which I really can let it all hang out, as I say, and I cherish them. The trust that has grown between us has created a really strong bond, and I depend on that. And that bond, it's fragile too. Trust can be broken. And so maintaining trust asks a lot of us. It asks honesty and kindness and care. And I think the same thing happens in our practice. It's like building a relationship over time. Each time that we sit down and that we let go and come into presence, there's this budding of trust. First, it's trust in ourselves. We can do this, right? We begin to trust our capacity to hold ourselves and to see ourselves as we really are, moles and all. You know, I can think how many people sit down on a cushion in the beginning and they try once or twice to meditate, and they say, I can't do this, or I don't want to do this. But those of us that are here, we know we can do it. And then we begin to trust our process. We hold the natural openings and closings of our hearts and our minds and our bodies, and we discover our own pace without forcing ourselves to move too quickly. And then we begin to trust the practice itself, that it really is a path towards more contentment and less suffering. We do. We have more ability to let life unfold naturally, and we can live with more openness and less constriction. You know, sometimes I kind of get bowled over with the idea that it really works. Ehipassiko. We speak of that a lot. The Buddha's suggestion to see for yourself. The Buddha's asking us to experience what he's teaching so we can begin to trust the truth in ourselves and begin to deeply trust the path he's outlined. I so appreciate these teachings that it's grounded in finding out and trusting my own experience, my own practice, my own knowing. And because of this, I've experienced a deepening trust in the Buddha, in the awakened one, and in the Dharma. So far in my years of meditating, this awakened being has not led me astray, has not offered any teaching that I haven't found to be true in myself. And so when new teachings are offered now that I don't really fully understand yet, I still have a trust. And it inspires me to keep on going. And absolutely, there are times when the practice is difficult, but I'm assured that this is the way to less suffering. So in our conversations last month around renunciation, it seemed pretty clear to me that letting go of old, unskillful habits and opening our eyes to more skillful ways of being isn't simple and isn't easy. And it takes patience. And I'm also realizing, though, that at a deeper level, that letting go rests on trust. And when trust is developed and we can let go, wisdom is more likely to arise. Wisdom just doesn't arise as easily when we're constricted or when we're holding on. But when we're opening and letting things be, then our wisdom grows. A few years ago, I was at the hospice house where I work, and I was with a patient who was nearing the end of her life. And she was pretty quiet as I offered her a gentle touch. And the room was peaceful. I think one or two family members were also with us at her bedside. And out of this quiet place, the woman said quietly, trust. Trust. The universe is asking me to trust now. I've never forgotten that. Both the truth of it and the vulnerability of it. The absolute letting go that this woman was pointing towards. And I was told by her family members that this woman had a deep spiritual practice through her life. And it really makes me believe that that helped her to see her dying in this way. She had practiced and trusted in letting go in small ways throughout her life. and that maybe made this bigger letting go a bit more familiar and easier to move towards. So I just want to end with a small quote from Frank Ostaseski, who's a meditation teacher full of heart. And he says, facing a great deal of uncertainty creates a lot of noise in the mind. Gradually, we may recognize that we're okay, even though we don't have the answers. Discovering the ability to not know is the very skill needed to be happy and free. Don't be fooled thinking that thought is easy. Trusting is more challenging. It's an interaction of the wise heart, and something that many of us are less familiar with. So thank you all